I am 31, a construction project manager based in Austin, Texas. My hands are calloused from years of lifting beams, reviewing blueprints, and eating lunch off tailgates. I have always worked hard and saved every cent because I wanted stability, something my father never gave my mother. My fiancée, Lauren, 29, is a pediatric nurse with steady hands and soft eyes. The kind of woman who could calm a crying child just by smiling. We met during the pandemic after I fell from a scaffold and broke my wrist. She was on the emergency rotation that day. When she signed my cast, she told me I had better learn to stop fighting gravity. That line stayed with me long after the cast came off. We started seeing each other weekly, then daily, and before long she moved into my apartment on South Congress. She filled the place with flowers, candles, and that faint smell of lavender she carried on her scrubs. Life with her felt balanced. My work was chaotic, but she brought order, and I thought that was love. We planned weekend getaways to small Texas towns, dreamed of buying a fixer-upper, and talked about how many guests we could fit under an oak tree for our wedding. For 2 years, it all looked perfect from the outside. But even perfection can rot quietly. I began noticing subtle changes that I tried to ignore. She no longer waited for me to get home before eating. Her phone started living face down on the table. The long conversations we used to have after midnight became replaced by short nods and half smiles. She would claim exhaustion from double shifts, but her energy returned when she scrolled through social media or texted someone she never mentioned by name. I told myself it was stress, maybe nerves about the wedding, and I buried every doubt under more work hours. Then my younger brother Nate moved back to Austin. He was 28, loud, creative, the kind of man who could make strangers laugh within seconds. He worked as a graphic designer for a startup in Dallas before quitting because he said he was tired of corporate cages. Our relationship had always been complicated. He was the dreamer, I was the builder. He could charm his way into any room, while I was the guy who made sure the roof didn't collapse over it. Still, he was my brother, and I was proud to have him close again. Lauren seemed curious about him. She asked about his job, his tattoos, his favorite bands. The first time I met was over FaceTime when he called me during dinner. She leaned closer to the screen, laughing at his jokes as if they had known each other for years. I told myself it was harmless, just friendliness. After all, what woman wouldn't like Nate? He was funny, good-looking, and confident in that effortless way people develop when they never stay long enough to face consequences. Weeks passed, and small cracks widened. Lauren started spending more time out, saying she was visiting her cousin or staying late at work. I never pressed her for details. I trusted her, maybe too much. When she smiled, I believed every word because I wanted to. Around that time, my mother invited us both to a family barbecue. Lauren suddenly declined, saying she needed to rest, but she texted Nate later that evening about how much she regretted missing it. He showed me the message when I asked him why she was reaching out. He laughed it off, saying she probably just felt left out. I pretended to laugh too, though something sharp twisted inside my chest. As our engagement moved forward, the excitement dulled. We were supposed to choose floral arrangements one Saturday, but she canceled last minute. When she came home, her hair was curled differently, her perfume new, and her voice too light. I asked if everything was fine, and she said of course it was. Why would it not be? I kissed her forehead and pretended not to smell someone else's cologne on her sleeve. By the time our dinner at Blue Mesa Grill arrived, I was already uneasy. It was meant to be a small celebration, just the two of us, marking the last payment on our wedding venue. I wore the shirt she bought me for my birthday, the one she said made me look like I owned the room. She arrived late, dressed beautifully but distant, carrying that strange air of finality people were when they have already decided something. When she sat down, her eyes did not meet mine. I asked if she was okay. She nodded, then reached for her purse, and I thought she was getting her phone. Instead, she placed the ring on the table, the diamond glinting under the restaurant lights. She whispered that we rushed into this, that she needed to think, that I deserved someone ready. The room felt suddenly smaller. I looked at her hands, the ones that had once wrapped around mine when I was broken and believed they would never let go. All I could manage was silence. That same night, my brother texted asking to meet. He said he had run into Lauren outside and wanted to talk. That was the moment the unease became certainty, and I finally understood what she meant when she said we had rushed. She was not talking about love. She was talking about guilt that had arrived too soon to hide. It was a Friday evening at the Blue Mesa Grill, the night we were supposed to celebrate clearing the final payment for our wedding venue. I arrived early, wearing the navy shirt she always said made me look dependable. My hands kept drumming against the table, a nervous rhythm that betrayed the mix of excitement and unease sitting in my chest. The restaurant was warm, full of couples leaning close, soft jazz playing in the background. For a moment, I let myself believe everything was fine. Lauren walked in 15 minutes late, her hair perfectly styled, her lipstick a deeper shade of red than usual. She looked beautiful, but there was something distant in her eyes. The perfume she wore was stronger than she had ever used before, the kind meant to leave an impression. Behind her was Nate, my brother. He smiled awkwardly, hands shoved into his pockets, and said it was cool that she had invited him. My heart sank before I could even respond. She had brought my brother to what was supposed to be our dinner. We sat down, the three of us, at a round table meant for two. The conversation started off polite, harmless even, but it quickly turned into a duet between them. They joked about memes, shared glances, and finished each other's sentences like they had rehearsed it. I watched them laugh, my food untouched, my drink growing warm. Every time I tried to join in, the rhythm broke, and they went right back to each other. I felt like a guest in my own life. When the waiter brought the check, I reached for it automatically. Lauren placed her hand over mine. Her touch used to feel like home, but that night it felt like a warning. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile people give when they've already made a decision. She said she wanted to talk before we went any further. My stomach tightened. She slid the ring from her finger. The sound of it landing on the porcelain plate was sharp, metallic, too final. She said she thought we had rushed into things, that I was wonderful, but something felt off. She said she needed to listen to herself before we made a mistake. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed, and I realized she had probably practiced this moment. The restaurant went quiet. The waiter froze mid-step. My brother stared down at the table, pretending to read the dessert menu he hadn't touched. I looked at him and saw something in his face that wasn't guilt but fear. It was the kind of fear that comes from being caught in a secret you are not ready to explain. That was when everything connected. The messages, the laughter, the distance. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask why. I simply pushed the ring back toward her and said she was right. We should not rush into anything, especially lies. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Nate shifted uncomfortably, his hand tightening around his glass. I stood up, left enough cash on the table to cover the bill and a little extra for my dignity, and turned to leave. As I walked through the restaurant, I could feel eyes on me, that silent sympathy strangers offer when they witness heartbreak. My reflection in the glass door looked like someone I did not recognize, a man stripped of everything he thought was solid. I stepped into the cool Texas night and drew in a deep breath. Behind me, I heard her call my name, but I kept walking. Her voice cracked, then faded. Each step toward the parking lot felt heavier than the last, like gravity was trying to drag me back to the moment I had just escaped. The night air carried the faint sound of laughter from inside, but it no longer belonged to me. By the time I reached my truck, I finally exhaled. My hands trembled against the steering wheel, not from anger, but from clarity. The woman I loved and the brother I trusted had written a story without me, and the ending had been waiting for this dinner. I started the engine, the headlights cutting through the dark, and drove away without looking back. The next morning, Nate showed up at my apartment. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair messy, and his voice shaky as he said it was not what it looked like. I stood there in silence, the smell of coffee filling the room, wondering if he even believed the lie he was telling. That is what they all say before it becomes exactly what it looked like. He sat on the edge of the couch, rubbing his palms together, explaining that they had just been talking. He said Lauren needed someone to listen, that she felt misunderstood, and he was only trying to help. I let him speak until the words started circling the same drain. Emotional connection, late night calls, just friends. It was the same script cheaters always read from, except this time it came from my own brother. When he left, I scrolled through Lauren's messages. She had stopped replying to anything beyond a short thank you or a vague maybe later. Then the photos started appearing on social media. Lauren and Nate by a lake, her head on his shoulder, sunlight reflecting off the water. The caption read, "Life surprises you sometimes." It was like watching my trust evaporate in real time, replaced by betrayal written in filters and hashtags. I closed the app, deleted her number, and stared at the engagement ring sitting on my counter. That small piece of metal suddenly looked like a joke that had gone on too long. I called the wedding venue first. The manager was polite, sympathetic even, when I said the wedding was off. I canceled the florist, the DJ, the photographer, every single piece of what was supposed to be our future. Then I froze the joint account before she could touch another dollar. She called me immature for doing it. I called it reclaiming my sanity. The caterer tried to apologize for the non-refundable deposit, but I told him to keep it and feed my crew at the construction site instead. That Friday, my team grilled steaks and drank beer under the sunset. Someone raised a toast to freedom, and for the first time in months, I actually laughed. 2 weeks later, my mother called crying. She had seen them at a local fair, holding hands like they were the stars of a romantic comedy. Her voice broke as she said they looked happy. I told her to let them look however they wanted. I was done reacting. I had already started a new project in Dallas, packed up my apartment, and moved into a small rental close to the job site. Every morning before sunrise, I went to the gym. It was not about revenge or pride. It was about remembering I still had a body, a heartbeat, and a life outside their betrayal. Months passed quietly. I worked, lifted, and built new routines piece by piece. Sometimes the loneliness hit like a hammer, but it never lasted long. There was a strange kind of peace in rebuilding alone. 6 months later, karma began its quiet work. A mutual friend from Austin told me Lauren had been suspended from her hospital job after violating patient privacy. Some careless text shared online, a photo sent to the wrong group chat. The same habit of oversharing that once made her charming now cost her everything. A week after that, Nate lost his biggest client. He had shown up late and intoxicated to a major presentation. The company dropped him, and his reputation collapsed almost overnight. I did not celebrate, but I did not feel sorry either. Life has its own way of balancing things. By then, I had been promoted to site manager. My new team respected me. My savings grew, and I finally bought a modest house on the outskirts of Dallas. I built a small workshop in the backyard where I spent weekends fixing furniture and welding metal sculptures. The smell of cedar and iron replaced the scent of her perfume, and the sound of tools replaced her laughter. It was not revenge that healed me. It was creation. It was knowing that peace cannot be posted, and the kind of life worth living never needs an audience. A year later, I walked into a hardware store on a Saturday afternoon, just another weekend errand. The place smelled like wood dust and engine oil, the kind of scent that makes a man feel grounded. I was comparing paint samples for my workshop when I heard someone say my name. The voice was soft, hesitant, and immediately familiar. I turned around and there she was. Lauren. She looked different, thinner, older somehow, her confidence replaced by something fragile. Her hair was tied back, her makeup light, and her eyes carried a sadness that no filter could hide. She smiled faintly and said I looked happy. I told her I was, and it was the truth. For the first time in my life, I meant it without needing to convince anyone. She nodded, biting her lip like she was searching for words that would make time rewind. She said she thought my brother was what she needed, that she had confused excitement for love. She said Nate was fun at first, spontaneous, always chasing the next thrill, but he had no anchor. He borrowed money from her, missed job interviews, and disappeared for days. She said he started drinking more, blaming everyone but himself, and when she tried to help, he told her she was just another responsibility he never asked for. By the time she finished, she looked exhausted, as if reliving it had drained what was left of her pride. I stood there holding a can of paint, not sure whether to feel pity or indifference. The part of me that once wanted explanations had already gone quiet months ago. I told her I hoped she found peace. She nodded, eyes glistening, and said she was trying. Then she turned, pushed her cart down the aisle, and disappeared between shelves of tools and paint cans. Driving home, I didn't feel anger, just a calm detachment that felt like freedom. The road stretched long under the Texas sun, and every mile between me and that store felt like distance from the man I used to be. When I pulled into my driveway, my dog came running out, tail wagging, dirt on his paws from digging by the fence again. I laughed for the first time that day, really laughed. I spent the evening on my porch, a cold beer sweating in my hand, the sky turning orange and pink above the rooftops. The air smelled of cedar and smoke from a neighbor's barbecue. I leaned back in my chair, my dog resting his head on my knee, and for the first time, I did not feel the need to replay anything. No what-ifs, no old texts, no mental reruns of what I could have done differently. It was all dust, swept away by time. I thought about how pain has a way of polishing a person. It scrapes, burns, and bends you until you either break or shine. I chose to shine. I had rebuilt my life brick by brick, not with grand gestures, but with quiet consistency. Early mornings, hard work, small joys. The kind of peace that never needed a witness. Nate had moved again, according to my mother. He bounced between jobs, chasing schemes that never lasted. Lauren, I heard later, left town for a nursing position in another state. I did not wish them misery. I just hoped they learned what I already had, that betrayal does not define you unless you let it. As the sun disappeared behind the fence, I thought about everything I had lost and everything I had gained. My home, my career, my sense of self, all rebuilt from the wreckage they left behind. I realized that peace is not found in payback. It is found in walking away so far that the people who hurt you cannot reach your name anymore. I finished my beer, looked at the quiet street, and smiled. Somewhere inside me, the anger that once burned had turned into something stronger. Acceptance, gratitude, a strange kind of serenity that only comes after chaos. Some people are not lessons to learn from. They are warnings dressed as love, reminders of what blindness looks like when you call it devotion. The best revenge is not proving them wrong or making them jealous. The best revenge is becoming untouchable, not through power or wealth, but through peace. That night, as the sky faded to deep blue and the stars began to show, I whispered a quiet thank you to no one in particular. Thank you for the heartbreak that forced me to rebuild. Thank you for the silence that made me listen to myself. And thank you for the kind of pain that, once survived, teaches you that no one ever had the power to stop you.